the edge of the scorching Kalahari, there lies a vast oasis where Africa's great animals still roam wild. And humans come in wonder. But in just 1 week of an African summer, 2 ferocious attacks reveal the surprising fury of an ancient and awesome creature. Why is it attacking humans? And will it attack again? Solving this mystery requires 2 teams of experts. One in Africa, another in America. They must uncover the clues and unravel the secrets.
Something right there.
Behind these deadly assaults. They will discover who is the hunter and who is the hunted. It's a beautiful summer day in December when Bruce and Janice Simpson arrive in Botswana to celebrate their honeymoon. They have come to spend this memorable time together in a place many call Africa's last and greatest paradise, the Okavango Delta. Here, crystalline waters of a wayward river empty into the sands of the Kalahari Desert. They create the largest oasis on Earth. A giant delta that's an untouched haven for Africa's most famous creatures, including its predators. Several days into their stay, Bruce and Janice decide to take a wildlife tour, accompanied by a local guide. To reach the prime viewing areas, they must cross wetlands that lie just beyond their lodge. The waters are tranquil as their guide pulls the canoe. Calm and silent, it's an ideal way to view wildlife up close. At about 10 o'clock, they begin to return to camp. There are few signs of wildlife. Then, without warning, something erupts from the water beside the boat. The impact hurls Bruce beneath the surface as the creature seizes Janice in its enormous jaws. The honeymoon has become a nightmare. But what animal would be bold enough to attack a boat filled with people? In the Okavango, there's one predator that rules the water. The Nile crocodile. Nile crocs can grow up to 20 feet long and weigh over 1,000 pounds. Their massive jaws are lined with 2-inch-long teeth, which they can shut with thousands of pounds of force. And they are infamous man-eaters. One giant crocodile in Uganda is believed to have killed more than 80 people. Few would be surprised if this was the predator attacking Janice Simpson. But her husband's account reveals something else entirely.
All I saw as I turned was a grey mass to my right, literally half a meter away from me. Basically, the girth of its chest was as wide as the section that Jan and I were sitting one behind the other.
It wasn't a croc. In fact, the animal wasn't even a predator, but a creature many consider a harmless, lazy, and even comic grazer. The hippopotamus. But that sluggish image is far from the reality we are only beginning to understand. Year after year, hippos are believed to attack and kill more people in Africa than any other animal. How is that possible? Despite their great girth, hippos can reach speeds of 30 miles per hour, twice that of most humans. The impact of a 3-ton bull at speed is literally the same as being hit by a truck. Inside their enormous jaws, hippos have foot-long tusks that can pierce adversaries with incredible effect. They have been known to sever 14-foot-long crocodiles completely in half. This is the surprising animal that was attacking the honeymooners' boat.
It had almost that impact sound of when you have a car accident. Then the next thing I was under the water. I couldn't see anything.
Bruce struggles to stand, but he cannot. The hippo's passing surge dislocates his shoulder and traps him beneath the surface.
The force of it pushed me right down into the mud. I knew the water was only just above my head. I was at risk of drowning.
He breaks free.
The first thing, I looked for my wife. I couldn't see her. She wasn't there. The makoro wasn't there. She was nowhere to be seen.
What has happened to Janice? And why did the creature attack? Tragically, hippos take human lives all over Africa. But the details of these incidents are hard to come by. The animals are difficult to study, and scientists know surprisingly little about them. The astonishing assault on Bruce and Janice Simpson seems to be a freak and random act. Until just 1 week later. It is nearly sunset on another branch of the Okavango's life-giving waterways. Diana Tilden Davis knows this territory well. The former Miss South Africa has worked here for years as a guide since retiring from pageant life. This is the world she loves. But she cannot escape her celebrity. And today, she is completing work on a documentary she hopes will show the unique beauty and vulnerability of the Delta to millions of others. They have just one shot to finish before they wrap. The director steadies the boat for the camera, and Diana pulls forward. Then, without warning, it appears. The hippo charges from just a few yards away. Instinctively, Diana strikes with her pole to slow its advance, telling the others to scatter.
Get out! Go!
She faces the ferocious beast alone. 2 attacks just days apart have put 2 women at risk and shaken the tranquility of this African paradise. Are these isolated incidents, or is there a hidden connection that is making the animals deadly? 2 women have now been attacked by hippos. But are these deliberate assaults or some kind of mistake? Many here in Africa and elsewhere believe that hippos are nearsighted and therefore unable to distinguish between things that are dangerous and those that aren't. If that's so, the hippos may have attacked both Janice and Diana because they saw the women's boats poorly and mistook them for advancing crocodiles. But there are 2 things wrong with this theory. Hippos and crocs don't usually fight. The giants often live side by side under a lasting, if uneasy, truce. And nearsightedness is an improbable cause of the attacks for another reason. The hippo's poor eyesight is a myth.
Do hippos have poor vision?
There is no evidence for it.
Professor Bill Barklow has studied hippos for decades.
At night, when I'm in the field, if I shine a flashlight in a hippo's face, the eyes shine back to me, like a deer in the headlights of a car. There's a special membrane in there that reflects the light that allows them to see better at night.
No one has yet been able to test hippo vision. But other animals with eyeshine, like dogs, have astonishing capabilities.
Dogs have been tested very carefully, and they have incredible vision at night, like a night vision scope. And so it's likely hippos can see that well at night.
Professor Greg Erickson is a biologist at Florida State.
Of course, dogs and cats, which have great night vision, also have great daylight vision. So there's no reason to suppose that hippos can't see well in the daytime as well.
Yeah, I'm quite certain that during the day they see as well as we do, and at night much better.
Poor vision can't account for either of the attacks in the Delta. But details of the Simpson incident suggest another possibility. When the honeymooners encountered the hippo, it is on their return trip across the wetland, on their way back to the lodge. But as they follow the route, something blocks their way and makes them change course. Elephants.
So we stopped and we waited for them for a while. And in fact, the guide banged his pole on the Mokoro a few times to try and make some noise, try and get them to move off. We had sort of waited for these elephants for about 5 or 6 minutes, and so Jan and I said, well, you know, if there's another way back, let's go.
The pilot steers the Mokoro away from the giants.
And we were looking for another channel to basically cut across this waterway to get back to the camp.
They find one, but it is much narrower, barely arm's length wide, and choked on either side by thick reeds. It's down this channel that the hippo lies waiting. Narrow channels like these can be especially hazardous to navigate.
With this canal, the canal is quite open, but once you look to the side, the visibility is quite limited. I mean, it varies between, what would you say?
A meter, half a meter, at the best a meter and a half.
Erkis Rome regularly traps and moves hippos as a game management officer.
Hippo has got extremely good eyesight. They can spot you 200 yards away, but in this circumstances here, visibility is absolutely limited to 3 to 6 feet. There is no ways that you can see any further than that.
So visibility is definitely a problem.
Johan Eckstein is chief ecologist for a South African game park.
Remember, hippo's eyes are at water level, so he's even more limited than we are, because we at least have some depth here.
Despite its excellent eyesight, the hippo would have had its view obstructed by the thick reeds, making it difficult, if not impossible, for it to see the boating party as they approached. Did that mean they startled the hippo? Hippos, like most animals, rely on more than eyesight for information. And their other senses are incredibly sharp.
They can smell you 100 meters away, the slightest change in the wind, and they would immediately know you are there. Their hearing, just the slightest brush of clothing against some foreign object, and they know that there is human activity. So I cannot see how an animal could not have sensed that there is human activity here.
The hippo must have known that humans were approaching. But that doesn't explain why it attacked them. Hippos are more likely to take flight as they are to fight. Shy and skittish, they tend to avoid humans, if at all possible. So why didn't this one run away? Possibly because it was protecting its home turf. Male hippos are highly territorial in the water and defend their terrain through intimidation and violence. The bulls use ritualized threats, often misunderstood by humans as sleepy yawns, to intimidate others with their size and weaponry. If that fails, the combatants lock together and test each other's strength. But the shoving match can turn to all-out combat and a fight to the death. Their jaws are well equipped for these struggles.
Although this is quite a young bull, it clearly shows how this animal's skull was designed. You can see these teeth have no grazing value. The grazing is done with their lips. That is for defense.
The continuously growing tusks are kept razor sharp.
This is not quite even a large one, they get much bigger, but this is how they actually sharpen against each other, honing from the top and the other one from the bottom, and that keeps this one sharp all the time.
In a territorial dispute, the hippo can wield these weapons with enormous force.
They're opening up these huge mouths. There's up to about 150-degree gape.
We can fit this canoe in there if we want to.
With the canines that it has there and huge biting power, but it's a huge bite that they can deliver.
Anything that can fit in there is in real trouble.
This was the weaponry Janice Simpson faced. Bruce searches desperately for his bride. Finally, he sees her.
I rushed over and I turned her over, and she had been bitten through the chest, in the front and through the back, and she'd been bitten in the head, and she was just losing blood so quickly. There was just blood everywhere.
Bruce and the guide do all they can to save her. Janice Simpson dies almost instantly. In the wake of the tragedy, Bruce recalls an unsettling detail, one that questions territory as a motive, and suggests that the answer behind the attack is still a mystery. By the time Bruce surfaced, the assailant was gone.
I heard the animal disappearing, and it was already gone. I mean, It was literally a few split seconds.
The hippo ran away. Dominant bulls don't abandon their turf or leave their females unguarded.
Don't you think that a territorial dispute could have played a role here?
No, it's unlikely, because a territorial bull would be with the females. But in this case, there was only mention of a lone hippo.
This hippo was all by itself.
Dominant hippo bull in this territory would be with the herd. It's unlikely that the animal would do this for territorial reasons.
Yeah.
Janice Simpson wasn't attacked by a territorial bull, and neither was Diana Tilden Davis. Like Janice, she also encountered a lone hippo far from an established herd. But in her case, the animal actually continues its assault. Diana fights off the hippo's initial surge, but it charges a second time and crashes into the boat. Diana fights for traction as she slides toward its jaws. But if this isn't a territorial attack, what is it? And why is the hippo's fight so ferocious? 2 women have been attacked by hippos in the Okavango Delta. Both encountered animals that were far apart from a herd. It's unusual for a hippo to be alone. The animals usually congregate in groups and rarely abandon the comfort and security of a herd.
One thing that still worries me is, why was this animal alone? Why was this an isolated animal?
Another incident, also with a lone hippo, raises one possibility of what went wrong. Danny Miney is in South Africa's Kruger National Park to enjoy a weekend getaway with his family. On their first day, his niece Anina asks him for a favor.
Early that morning, Anina wants to go and see the hippos at the viewpoint.
They stop at an overlook to watch a large herd of hippos resting in the river below. The animals seem quite calm, and the two enjoy the view. They stay for a quarter of an hour before walking back. Along the way, they encounter Danny's wife, Anneke. The family decides to walk further together.
We asked one of the workers there for the best place to go and view the area, and he showed us the dam. The minute we reached at that point, we did see the hippo inside the dam.
Half a mile from the river and the rest of the herd, a lone hippo waits in the water.
Our reaction was, what a beautiful animal. We didn't realize what's the danger of the animal.
The family delights in watching the giant creature. After a while, Danny heads off to catch up with the rest of their family. He's about 5 minutes down the path when he hears a scream. Anina rushes to him, terrified.
And she said, no, the hippo did bite Anneke.
Danny races to help his wife.
I've called her and said, Anneke, where are you?
He arrives to a horrible discovery.
I see her, and she said, just bear in mind that I love you.
Anneke Miney dies moments later. Like those attacked in the Delta, she encountered a solitary hippo. But Anarchy may have left a clue why she was attacked. She has captured her killer on video.
This is a video that was taken by Anarchy Miney the morning that she was attacked.
So far, this looks like a normal hippo behavior here. It's just resting there in the water near the reeds. The water's probably just the right depth for her to lift her head and get a breath.
So this animal doesn't look agitated or anything like that at this point.
Well, it looks like a contented hippo. Doesn't look aggressive at all right now.
But something made the placid animal lethal. The final images on the videotape reveal why.
Yeah, well, there's a calf, and a young calf at that, so this is a very newborn baby.
And that makes the mother a force to be feared.
So this female could be very protective in this situation?
Yes. Mothers with calves will attack anything that comes near them, including human beings. They are very aggressive at this stage.
Were the solitary animals that attacked Janice and Diana also mothers, protecting their young? Few predators dare take on an adult hippo. But calves are fair game. Lions, hyenas, even pythons will go for these 100-pound morsels. Mothers must be vigilant to protect their offspring, even from other hippos.
They usually separate from the bigger herd, in some cases as far as a kilometer away from the herd in a little secluded pool. The biggest threat to a baby hippo is trampling by other hippo.
But a shocking new discovery reveals it's not only the adult's bulk that's a threat. Male hippos are now known to deliberately kill infants, presumably the offspring of other males. This infanticide makes the female ready for breeding more quickly and reduces competition for the bull's future bloodline. But it also means that to keep their infants from harm, new mothers must hide apart from the herd. All 3 attacks were made by solitary hippos. Yet it seems unlikely that those in the Delta were attacked by a ferocious mother. Both locations are ill-suited for calves.
This thick reed bed here, this is not typical of reeds where a female would have a calf.
No, this is definitely not typical of a female, because they usually look for open areas on the side as well. Yes, reeds on the sides of the pool, but definitely an area on open land, on land where they can get out of the water.
Like their parents, baby hippos don't swim. They walk on the bottom and need a beach nearby so they can get out of deeper water to rest. Neither attack took place near such a nursery. The lone hippos that charged Janice and Diana weren't protecting their young. And they weren't defending their territory. So why had they attacked? For Diana, the result could be lethal. The animal that came after Diana shrugged off her initial defense and charged a second time. Buying time for her colleagues to escape, Diana finally slips, and her leg slides into range. A single bite virtually severs her left calf. And the animal isn't letting up. What is making the hippo so ferocious? In addition to infanticide, scientists are uncovering more surprising and even shocking hippo behavior. In times of extreme stress, when food or water runs out, the animals are capable of things we never thought possible. For hundreds of years, we humans have believed that hippos are strict vegetarians. we were wrong. This video shows a hippo scavenging the remains of a buffalo for meat. They have also been observed cannibalizing the remains of their own. There are even reports that hippos can act as predators, killing prey and eating it. Do their attacks on humans have anything to do with this unexpected and darker side of their behavior? And if they do, is there any way to know what would drive the hippos to such terrifying extremes? The two attacks on humans in the Okavango Delta made some wonder if the hippos there were suffering severe conditions. Conditions that could make them desperate and deadly. In summer, the time of the attacks, the region faces brutal heat. Temperatures can soar over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and life-sustaining water can be hard to come by. Both hippo attacks took place in December, when life-giving rains usually return to the area. But this year, they are late, and a desperate drought has afflicted much of the region. But a drought in the Okavango doesn't mean there's no water. The delta is sustained by a river that flows from distant Angola, where the annual rains are plentiful. These floodwaters move downriver and fan out across the flatland, keeping the oasis alive. There was more than enough water to drink when the attacks occurred. The hippos weren't stressed enough to make them attack out of desperation. Then what caused the assaults on Janice and Diana? The animals weren't responding to territorial or maternal threats. And they weren't behaving abnormally because of environmental pressure. Could the answer lie in the behavior not of the hippos, but of the humans instead? Another incident shows how easily this can happen. Richard Gumedi sets off from his home in rural South Africa to go fishing. The gill netting he does is illegal, but it's his only way to support his family. So he does it at night.
On that day, I left home and went to work at the place where I normally go. That is where I cast my gill net. I then waited for some time until it was around 2.
It's the dead of night when Richard collects his catch. Finished, he returns his boat to its hiding place in the reeds. Then it happens.
The hippo appeared suddenly, charging at high speed. The impact threw me into the air.
He lands on the animal's back, but it quickly submerges and rushes away.
The hippo then turned back, now with its mouth wide open. When it came at me, I suddenly found my whole head up to the neck inside its mouth. Then it went and threw me away, as you can see from this scar.
Miraculously, Richard Gumedi survives with only a few minor wounds. The reason behind his attack soon becomes clear. Richard was attacked at night when hippos come out of the water to graze on grasses. But the giant animals are extremely skittish on dry land and immediately return to the water whenever they feel threatened. If something cuts them off from this refuge, however, they are effectively trapped and incredibly dangerous.
One of the big dangers is a hippo getting frightened on land, and if it should happen that a hippo gets alerted by a sound or smell, he will always go to water.
A major cause of conflict between humans and hippo. If he's on land and you disturb him, he just takes the shortest route back into the water, which is his last point of refuge.
Should it happen that you are in that route with a hippo rushing back to water,
You're in the way, and well, he's coming right through you.
Did Richard Gumede pilot his boat between a hippo and the safety of deep water?
It definitely came from the bushes. Then it continued, charging into the water.
The hippo charged when Richard inadvertently cut it off from the river and left it cornered. But it doesn't seem that the attacks on Janice or Diana fit this dangerous scenario. Both hippos were already in the water when the women were attacked. And both could have stayed there and still moved away from the oncoming boats. But that's not what they did. In fact, the hippo that killed Janice Simpson actually ran out of the water after attacking her.
And you could actually see the bank where it climbed the bank and gone out onto land.
Why did the animal leave its place of refuge? The answer lies in whether it recognized friend or foe, and in signals that we can't even hear.
So Bill, what are we looking at here?
It's actually a voice print. But this is recorded on the surface. And underneath this line are the sounds recorded by a hydrophone, an underwater microphone. So here's the surface sound. And the underwater sound now.
Wow.
You hear something there?
Yeah. Those sound like the clicks that whales make.
They're very similar to whale sounds. In fact, killer whales make a sound just like this.
There's an astonishing reason why the sounds are so similar.
Recently, people have looked at the molecules, the DNA. And when they did that, they found that the DNA of the hippos is very, very similar to the DNA of whales and dolphins, of all things. Yeah.
Incredibly, recent DNA analyses have raised the possibility that the hippo's closest relative may not be pigs, as many had long believed, but whales and dolphins. Like their sea-going relatives, hippos even give birth underwater, as seen in this footage from Busch Gardens, Tampa Bay. But unlike their giant cousins, hippos don't use their underwater sounds as sonar.
So what are they using it for?
Well, we think they're used for communication. They make these clicks, which are easy to locate, to tell other hippos in the water that I'm coming. Don't beat me up.
If hippos use these underwater clicks to avoid aggressive encounters, could the animals that attacked have heard the boaters approaching, but without this friendly signal? If so, they may have considered the humans a threat. Diana and her film crew were virtually silent as they approached. But for one thing, the director was walking in the water. Did the animal hear what it considered a hostile approach? Hippos actually close their ears underwater. That doesn't mean they can't hear.
Look at here, you can see right there, that tube that leads down inside the skull here to the inner ear.
Okay.
And that's where the sound is sensed and sent to the brain to be analyzed. And you'll notice that this big jaw right here connects right there, very close to where the inner ear is under the skull. Sound made underwater vibrates this lower jaw. There are big thick parts here that will respond to high frequency sounds, lower frequency sounds back here at the thinner part. So as the vibrations come in through the jaw, they rattle the inner ear, and they can hear the underwater sounds too. Wow. So they can hear in the air with their outer ear, just the way we do, but they can also, with their head in the water, pick up and monitor sounds underwater too. And I don't know of any other animal that does this.
With its ears above or below the water, the hippo likely heard the advancing humans. And without hearing a cautionary call from another hippo, it might have feared the worst. But most hippos would still turn and flee from the unknown intruder. What made these animals decide to attack? The hippo that attacked Diana Tilden Davis showed no sign of relenting until a nearby colleague shot a flare gun into the air. The noise startled the hippo just long enough for Diana to escape. Looking back, she now recalls a telling detail about the animal that attacked her. The water it was in was shallow.
When he stood up, I mean, his whole head was above the water.
That's quite shallow for a hippo. Water deep enough to submerge himself, that's a basic habitat requirement of a hippo.
When they feel threatened, hippos submerge in deep water and stay under for up to 8 minutes. In the shallows, that wouldn't have been easy.
A hippo would stand this high, and even if it would go lie down, a third of his body would still be out of the water. So actually, for the animal to be able to submerge itself under the water, he would have needed an indentation at the bottom of that canal.
The hippo made itself just such a place to submerge.
Because he was quite big and it was quite shallow, he had made a little sort of wallow in the sand to get completely under the water. He was definitely trying to hide.
Bruce Simpson also believes that the animal that took the life of his wife was hiding.
The hippo must have been submerged and crouching in the water. So the water couldn't have been deeper than a couple more feet where the hippo is hiding. There's no ways it could have been there unless it was crouching.
Why would two of these fearsome giants go to such lengths to hide?
Bill, these are absolutely formidable animals. I mean, they're just enormous. They have this incredible complement of tusks. I mean, I can't imagine that these things have any natural enemies.
There probably is only one real enemy of hippos, and that's us, human beings. I think we've had weapons capable of killing hippos for at least 50,000 years.
And that means the animals may have been hiding from an ancient adversary.
That would put it roughly 5,000 hippo generations. That's a long time, enough time for evolution to cause changes in the behavior of the hippos to defend themselves against human beings.
Do you think that makes it more likely that these animals would attack humans?
Oh, absolutely. Over the years, we have become an archenemy.
In recent years, the human threat to hippos has only gotten worse. When the world banned elephant ivory in 1989, hippos began to be hunted for their tusks. And as human conflicts have raged from one war-torn country to another in parts of Africa, the animals have been targeted for their meat. Over the past 10 years, it's estimated that there's been a 7 to 20% decline in hippo populations. But the animals are protected in the Delta. And recent persecution of hippos elsewhere wouldn't make those in Botswana more prone to violence. But what made two animals try to hide, only then to attack in the span of just 1 week? There's one crucial clue, and Diana saw it as the animal charged.
When he came for us, his mouth was open. Lots of cuts and gashes in his mouth. His ear had been chewed on, and his face was all scarred and open. They were all fresh wounds.
The hippo that attacked her was a badly wounded young bull. There is only one beast capable of inflicting such injuries on the fearsome animal. Another hippo. Though the great bulls can fight virtually at any time, this December, the fighting was especially fierce.
We'd heard lots and lots of fighting. All over the place, you hear them everywhere.
Bruce Simpson heard it too.
There was a lot of fighting going on between the hippos.
There's a reason why the bulls were so aggressive. Though the annual flood had arrived in the Delta, the lack of rain meant the only place to find the grasses hippos depend upon were right along the channels. That forced the hippos closer together.
I couldn't even begin to count them. It was one of the things that staggered me was the density of the hippo population.
This high concentration of massive appetites creates another problem.
Because the territories are so small, the grazing's really, really bad. I think they become stressed, so that creates more of an aggression.
With good grazing hard to come by and more rivals close at hand, dominant bulls are primed to attack.
And those are the times when the hippos become very territorial, and there's a lot of fights that break out.
For a young bull, these fights can be lethal. And many try to hide. But when territories are close together, there are few unclaimed places to go.
In a young bull, especially this part of the time of the year when they get chased out of the bigger herds, you know, they're all full of cuts and wounds. I mean, we've seen them quite often in relatively shallow water where they are like this, and they're sheltered among the reeds.
Beaten, bloodied, and perhaps terrified that giant bulls may take their lives, the cornered young hippos hide until the last possible instant, hoping the approaching threat will go away. When it doesn't, they fight for their lives and attack the humans who have unwittingly come near them.
The reason he attacked me was he was injured. An injured animal is totally unpredictable. It's a survival instinct.
Diana Tilden Davis also shows a strong will to live. She spent over 2 years rehabilitating the leg that was miraculously saved, and already has plans to return to her beloved Delta and its hippos.
I've seen the hippo twice since the incident. He was going through just as a traumatic time as I've been through. So our bond, I think, has grown from that.
So has that of Bruce Simpson.
One of my goals is to be able to go back and get as much pleasure as I did before out of spending time watching hippos and photographing them. In many respects, I feel like I have a link with them now.
The relationship between humans and hippos may always be a difficult one. And the animals' reliance on fresh water will continue to put them at odds with an ever-expanding human population. But whenever we leave our domain and enter the realm of wild animals, we will do best to remember that our knowledge is limited, and our estimation of the natural world often prejudiced. For if we forget that the creatures of this world live lives as complex and particular as our own, we humans may lose our ancient role as the hunter and instead become the hunted. At the edge of the scorching Kalahari, there lies a vast oasis where Africa's great animals still roam wild. And humans come in wonder. But in just 1 week of an African summer, 2 ferocious attacks reveal the surprising fury of an ancient and awesome creature. Why is it attacking humans? And will it attack again? Solving this mystery requires 2 teams of experts. One in Africa, another in America. They must uncover the clues and unravel the secrets.
Something right there.
Behind these deadly assaults. They will discover who is the hunter and who is the hunted.